You are now live.
I'm just
Okay.
going to,
This is a meeting of Senate Appropriations, and we're going to try to get ourselves somewhat organized for this session. And that will be a number of things, including clerk, as well as assigning the sections of the budget that each member of the committee will be responsible for. I would like to begin by letting the committee know that Stephanie's aunt, who she was very close to, lived in the Boston area, passed away a few days ago. You remember she was kind of flying back and forth and moved her into assisted living, but her health condition continued to deteriorate. So that's sad news. She's had a lot of, well, with her brother's unexpected death, this has been, she's had more than her share of losses, that's for sure. So she's not with us today. She'll be back later, but I just wanted to let the committee know that that's why Stephanie has been away and is not with us today. The other, before we sort of announcements, and I'm trying to, and maybe as people get information, you can feed it back so we're aware of it, but a couple of updates that I want to share. One of which is there's language in a bill that we passed related to broadband and a language that terminates the program January 1st. This is a problem because work that was authorized, and sometimes there's been a delay in supply chain, et cetera. But we put in language, I think it was probably recommended or it came over to us probably from House Energy and Technology, that terminated the program January 1st. So we've got to deal with, that's a technical correction. I've been working with Senator Sorokin, who's got a couple of must-pass bills coming out soon, to see if we can use that bill, maybe the workers' comp, which is the first out, to provide the clarity, because the last thing we want to do is have work authorized and then say, oops, it's after January, we can't pay you for it. So I just wanted to alert you in case that came up, because sometimes people think they're hearing it for the first time and not aware of what's going on. The other problem that's coming up, and any of you who've been on the committee for a long period of time, remember the common chart of accounts for our schools. This has been around so long. Martha Heath was chair of House Appropriations when we set aside the money to fund the acquisition of the software. And we're hearing from schools around the state that they're having a great deal of difficulty with the software. We've asked Dan Smith, our IT consultant at Joint Fiscal, to take a look at it, to sort out, is it a matter of training, information, the supports necessary for implementation, or are there some functionality problems with the software? In advance, in response to complaints from a local school district, Representative Christie is introducing a bill. And I just want to let you know that this is an issue that your Joint Information Technology Oversight Committee, of which I am a member, is aware of and had taken some initial testimony. We're trying to get a better identification or problem identification, because that really drives how you want to, how we can best respond. And if your memories are long, and some people do have long memories, as I'm looking on the screen, we did extend implementation of it. Remember, Senator Ash said we fought World War I, we fought World War II, we fought Korean War, and we fought those wars and they've ended in less time than we've got that common chart of accounts implemented. So it's been a long and rocky road, and I just wanted you to know that there is maybe a request from AOE to extend the deadline. The big problem, of course, is without that common chart of account, then we don't have consistency in data reporting, the coding, et cetera. So I just wanted to let you know that that the issues and the concerns are have been brought to the JITOC committee, and that we are doing this work to figure out how to proceed. It could be very simple to extend the deadline, but that does nothing to address the underlying issues or problems. But we have to understand them better in order to formulate an informed response. So I just wanted to let you know if that has come up, and maybe Alice, you've heard it from your district. Bobby, you probably have heard it. And everybody wants to remedy it, but you have to understand what it is we need to remedy first. So I wanted to let you know that probably, I guess maybe the Afghan war will last longer than the chart of accounts, hopefully. The other thing that Chrissy put together, and we can send it out, and that is a list of all the reports that are being sent to various committees. And this committee, I counted them up, there's over 160 reports.
Isn't that,
about what?
Isn't it true that the new members on the committee are supposed to read those and report back to the rest of us?
I think that's right. And we would do a summary. But if you assumed even 15 minutes for a report, and many of them take a lot longer, that's 40 solid hours of nothing but reading of reports. And it begs the larger question, bring it to your attention, Becca, and that is, how many reports, obviously to prepare them takes tremendous amount of staff time and resources, but it raises also the questions about how we want to organize the legislative utilization of this work, because it is a significant amount of staff time and resources for them. We can divvy them up. Many of them never see, as you know, the light of day. And I just want to say this is something that I know GovOps has asked us to do, look at reports, but many committees, an easy thing to sidestep or not, whatever you want to do is to have a study or a report. But if you look at the list, I couldn't believe it. It was page after page after page. And so if we're, as a committee, think about how we can utilize those reports, or whether we would say there's a more efficient way of getting this information, because it is, I was really taken back by just the length of that inventory. So I even said to Chrissy, are these all coming to us, or is this just everything? She said, no, they were just, they're the ones that they're all coming to appropriations. So yes, maybe we should have the newest members, right? That would only be if you split it up, maybe 20 hours of solid reading.
Well, the good thing is Phil and I are both quick readers. I know that. And we could do some kind of presentation, I'm sure, perhaps with music and dance. I know that would be something Bobby would like, especially.
Or we could prepare 160 summaries for you to read.
We have the list. Did Chrissy send us the list?
Yeah, and because she's going to be tracking when they're received to make sure. But it begs the larger issue around how we, in the Senate, what we ask for reports and in the aggregate, what it looks like in terms of time and and the staff obligations.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I know in finance last session, Anne did take us through looking at the list. Obviously, it was not nearly as long as the list that appropriations get. And we went through as a committee and kind of went through and voted and said, these things are sending us information we need. These are not, and just trying to cull through so that we don't want anyone doing busy work. Everybody's got plenty of work on their plates. So I agree with you.
Okay. And we go through that exercise too, but I don't think the list was based on what GovOps sent us, as opposed to what was its cumulative list, which I was quite impressed by, overwhelmingly impressed by it.
Yeah.
So the other two things to help us get organized is first, we need a clerk. And Senator Westman's playing Senator Snelling and leaving. But you're muted.
Joan was printing something, so I shut it down so you wouldn't hear the printer going.
I see. Okay. And so I did hear Senator Baruth as our newest member, and we welcome you, Senator Baruth, from your educational pursuits to now money. And you have agreed to serve as our clerk.
Oh,
We do not have ranking members, but Senator Sears always makes the point that he is the ranking member, if we had one.
We
He's
do,
ranked all right.
we do have ranking. I was named number 3 in the list,
Yeah.
following the vice chair, which in the House means you're the ranking member. I announced it to the banner yesterday. Unfortunately, they didn't print it. They just printed a story about Campion getting chair of education. The whole back page of the banner.
I knew I would hear about that tonight.
The whole back page of the banner. Campion, nothing about me being ranking member of appropriations. I'm very disappointed.
I'll call Greg, Senator. I will let him
Would you call
know.
Greg, please?
I will.
Senator?
I will.
Yeah, thank you. Ed, you were mentioned as looking for, supporting Brian too. We all gave our little, parade to Senator Campion and his wonderful skills.
Mhm. And
I'm serious. The whole back page of the banner is Campion being named chair of education.
he probably wrote the article.
I think he did. He got the quotes from Senator Ballant, from myself, and from others. I didn't see a quote from Dick Mazza. That's the only one I think was missing.
well, Senator Sears, I'm sorry your many years of service and the fact that you've been chair of judiciary.
The last paragraph mentioned that I was chair of judiciary, nothing about ranking member of the pro. So.
But I think Marley was quoted above you.
I think so.
Oh, well, nothing so humbling as our local paper. I've only been called a disappointment, a loser, and a liar, so you're right up there.
Oh, no, it wasn't that bad. They just forgot me.
Well,
But Campion just, he's disappointed it wasn't below the fold on the front page.
but for people like me who read magazines and the newspapers back to front.
Yeah, he's right there.
I'll let him know that he shouldn't have been disappointed.
Yeah, let him know.
A guy died in a rollover crash and he ran down the embankment to run away and died. That made the front page instead of Campion.
Oh, well, it doesn't have the same drama, that's for sure. So we now have to go on to a document which Chrissy, we've had from past session that provides the listing of the various budget assignments. What we have here are the assignments for those of us who have been on the committee previously, and the budget assignments for the that parts of the budget were general government was I believe Senator Ash, and no, it was the other way around, and Senator McCormick. And so first of all, are there areas that people who have had the assignments absolutely say, I don't want to do anymore? Are you comfortable? And then the question would be, are there up for the 2 yellow headings, a choice of what you want to do? I know, Becca, you've wanted to make the state colleges and higher ed a priority. I know Senator Baruth has been in education. Sure.
Yep.
And might like general government and general education. I don't know. I see Senator McCormick's hand is on Senator McCormick. Senator Sears' hand is up. So,
I just wanted to mention Woodside under DCF. So
Mhm.
I should probably move that, call that successors or something. I don't know what,
okay,
because there is no Woodside anymore.
that's right. So my question, though, to you, you still would like to stay within the protection, criminal justice, and those
Yeah.
areas of the budget?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, all right. It's just
Right.
a matter of the correction on Woodside and,
It would be easier if Becker had the shorter list, because a lot of days she's gonna have to miss to do her other duties, and I mean, the only thing I know about it.
yeah, that was part, I think, the reason that Senator Ash had taken those sections of the budget, recognizing juggling multiple
Yeah.
workloads. But I wanted to, well, why don't we start there, Becca? Does that list?
Right, I certainly understand that thinking, and just would want to give Senator Baruth a chance to weigh in. I certainly understand you've been serving on that the committee that was charged with looking at higher ed. So I don't know if it makes sense to swap out higher ed and move general ed over to me and give Senator Baruth the opportunity to continue being the touch person for higher ed. I'm flexible.
Yeah,
That-
and we are
that-
too. So how
that
does that
works
sound
for
to
me.
you?
Should we do that?
Sure,
Yeah,
if you
that-
like.
Yeah, that
would be
sounds
great.
fine. Okay. So we'll just switch the two from one column to the other. Anything else that people want to comment on? Okay,
Well,
Alice?
I can't see what's over on the right. I mean, I'm fine where I am. I could take something else maybe, if there's something that needs to move. But,
Okay.
well, let's see. I'm fine there.
Okay. All right, then we've taken care of that. Unless anybody else has a comment or,
So is that Senator Baruth? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
And so, Madam Chair, the only other question I have is, since I serve on economic development and housing in the morning, does it make sense for me to have that as something that I can be a go-between between the committee and Senator Sorokin, or does it make sense for Alice to keep
It's
picking up the
it's
housing piece?
mainly Gus Selig's operation
Got it.
under there. It's fine.
oh yeah, that's what it is, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But what you're asking, Senator Ballin, is whether that commerce and economic development, if there should be a swap out there.
Yeah, and just raising the question, just trying to, I know there are some committees better represented in approps than others, and I just want to make sure I'm of good use to Senator Sorokin, but it sounds like that is a pretty narrow bit of the budget they're dealing with VHCB. So
As it relates to Senator Nitka, but what I was asking is,
okay.
under Senator Starr, you see that's where a lot of the ACCD.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yep.
Um,
Okay, so let me look through that. And that is something that Senator Starr, you've had for a while
Right,
now, so you're well
if
versed
you-
in it.
If you think it would work better, we can move that over to your section that, but there's a
And
lot
then- and then-
under,
Right,
and then
exactly.
and then what it would do is move the protection part over to you, Bobby.
yeah, that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. That'd be fine. And then Becker would be in the committee. every morning and would be on top of it, and I'm not there anyway,
Okay.
so, I could pick up on the other stuff.
Okay,
Yeah,
All right.
thank
Well,
you
we
for
can-
your
We
thought
can
on
do
that.
that. We'll just
Yeah.
switch. A lot of them are very, they're on there. They represent a relatively small appropriation like the Arts
Mhm.
Council, the Symphony, et cetera. I think what we really, knowing what's ahead is what happens in economic development does have a direct impact in many ways on budget. So if you feel comfortable that works for you, Becca, that's fine. And Bobby, we'll switch the protection section.
Yeah.
And it looks like a long list, but a lot of
I
it
can
is.
see how some of them are, pretty brief.
Yeah.
Yep.
And anything else while we're taking a look at it? We haven't really looked at it for a while. We've got really some other good connections. The only one, I think, natural resources, in terms of a committee member, we have 2 members. How many members of judiciary do we have?
3.
2, 3, 3. Okay, so we don't have that same morning committee connection, but we'll make it work. Okay. Anything else coming up? All right. Yes, Dick Sears.
Yeah, I would like a better understanding of our pension liabilities. I keep getting
Mhm.
mixed information about it from various sources. There was an article this morning in today's Bennington Banner. Maybe I should stop reading it. John McClowry wrote about it.
Mhm.
During the campaign, we constantly heard that we were this many million. There's a difference of opinion. I think we need to better understand. I know that it's creating obvious holes in our budget because we have to make up for the sins of the past, as somebody puts it. But I'd really need to understand what is it and what is our plan going forward? How do we get out of this? I just feel oftentimes perplexed because people say this is it. This
Yeah.
is overspending by the government. Typical government, we're broke. I don't think we're broke. It would be good to have an analysis of that this year.
Yeah.
I really could.
I would agree. I've had a preliminary conversation with the House Chair, Mary Hooper, and this is a concern as well. So I know that we do need to spend some time understanding where we are because our pension obligations are one of the biggest budget pressures that we have. And so I think, and I know Joint Fiscal has been working on it. We did get a communication because at one of the Pew meetings, actually was the NCSL Pew meeting in New York City, and it was during the weekend leading up to town meeting. And then we came back, remember, 4 days, and the 13th, we haven't been back in town. And they have some capacity to help states look at pension plans. And we got a communication from Suzanne Young that they are going to be using the resources of Pew to do sort of a stress test and some analysis. This is what I know so far about pensions, and that is we realize that the assumptions used regarding the investment returns, which the committee has taken testimony. I remember some of Senator Starr's comments, were stated too high. Now, the advantage of higher investment returns is it lowers the amount you got to pay out in your ARC, or ADEC as it's now called. But the problem is that helps short term, but the longer term is it creates underfunding that has to be made up. So I would, and I know that the treasurer has been having discussions with VSEA and with other groups about changes that could be made to help mitigate that upward spending. So we are going to have to be spending some time on that.
I
And
don't mean any offense to the treasurer, but I would like to hear it from our own independent joint fiscal or some other outside groups. I'm also confused about how the healthcare for retirees enters into this. I remember several years ago, Steve Klein letting us know about a change where you had to count healthcare into the pension. How has that contributed to where we're at today?
okay.
That was a change from back when we were first looking at this, when it first became a problem.
That's right. And you're talking about post-employment benefits that never got funded, and we funded them out of the underfunded pension retirement fund, which compounded. So it's good to put this all together because there are a lot of moving pieces. The other area that was of interest, and of course there's been, it was such a significant jump, and that was the amount of the ADEP, or ARC, I still call it the ARC, for teachers that went from over 7 million to 38 million. And why, it was a huge increase. But what that also raised for me, and I think we need to understand it, when we moved the cost of normal teachers' retirement to the education fund, I'm talking about normal costs for currently employed. I'm not talking about the underfunding liability. We never thought about what happened if the ARC that was calculated, the assumptions were wrong and it resulted in underfunding. Right now, all of that, if that happens, that truing up, right now defaults to the general fund, as opposed to the truing up occurring with the ed fund. Now, the thing about the teachers' retirement for normal teachers, and that is when we did it, and it was the Appropriations Committee in the Senate that pushed that as a legitimate ongoing current expense. It was the one area where, in fact, local school budgets, by virtue of setting the teachers' salaries and the number of teachers, were de facto creating a general fund obligation that was totally removed from the appropriations process, which made it an anomaly in the sense that that the local budgets were creating a general fund obligation, which is an anomaly as it relates to how we review and determine and authorize appropriations in any other part of state government as it relates to a general fund obligation. So that's another permutation, and that is if, in fact, the ARC for teachers' retirement last year should have been 25, I'm just using this off of my top of my head, was 25 million, but the pay-in was only 7.2, where does that additional funding obligation fall? And I would point out that for the people in education, this year, the revenues flowing into the education fund, state revenues, exceed the general fund. I don't think anybody ever had looked at it quite that way. Now, obviously, property taxes are part of that, but it's a statewide structure at this point. But there's no question that it is the revenue, the amount of revenue relative to the general fund, and it's also as we look to the future where the greater growth is going to occur, And that's probably in the sales tax and consumption tax. So that the pressure continues on the general fund. But I think if we can get through, even in the recession, if you've been reading the monthly financial updates, the sales tax has remained strong. There's been a lot of consumer spending, even for cars, because of all the millions of dollars that have flowed into the Vermont economy, and the fact that people are doing a lot of online. And we fortunately have, we had the
Sales tax.
Wayfair case that makes the online sales subject to state sales tax, which if we didn't have it would be really a real problem. So pensions are definitely on the list for much more in-depth discussion. My other question to committee members is have you other identified areas that you feel that we need to take a greater look? I know that another area is going to be funding of our state college system.
Yep.
As two of our big pressure points. Others that people want to put on the list so we can think about how we want to schedule testimony or the information. Yes, Bobby.
Sometime I'd like to hear from somebody, probably I have to be Beth, about how our investments have done this last year, because they should have turned some real money over, you've been probably paying attention to that, and I'd just like to hear how much money we made on money that she's invested for us.
Joint Fiscal is taking a look at that.
Okay.
Last I was told is our investment return seems to be about mid-range of all states. But it's something that is part of that whole discussion around what is driving underfunding. And some of it is the nature of the investments, but the other is deliberately setting an investment return that probably is too optimistic or unrealistic. Other suggestions. What about on the water quality?
Yep.
Is that I mean,
they're getting a bunch of money through the feds for ecosystem improvements, and we might be able to move some of that money if we needed to, away from the fund and use some of this federal money to offset it. In this last year, in regards to water quality, there wasn't one project that got suspended or held up because of money. And I know they're getting a bunch from the feds through this latest COVID money.
Well, I don't know, out of those 160 reports, I'm sure there's one that gives us some update in terms of progress or what projects got funded. So the other connection on water quality, and I got a note from, it came, I guess, from government operations, but it had to do with we should fund the Connecticut River Commission.
I think they're getting some money over there
for
the Connecticut River.
What happened is last year the administration said that the commission could apply for water quality grants, and the GovOps, and I don't know what, I think it was GovOps, was taking a look at sunsetting. It was a sunset committee around the Connecticut River Commission. And this is an entity that's created in statute, and it has other roles than simply water quality. So we had a recommendation sent to us, and I got it as chair. So I just want to alert everybody that we should provide the funding for this commission that, unlike any of the other water quality entities we created, it's in statute. It's the only one. And so I just want to put that out there as something that we did in the budget, which was, to defer to what the administration said and let them apply for water quality grants. The Sunset Review Committee communicated to appropriations chairs that we should be funding the commission and not looking at it in terms of a grant recipient. And so I did confirm it's something that we created in statute. The rest of them around the state, of which was the argument from ANR, is how can you fund one and not all the rest, is that this is the only one. So I wanted to just alert you, it's triggered a thought that we did receive a memo about that they believed that as something created in statute, we had an obligation to fund it. So that's in the water quality. Other areas of initiatives? Yes, Dick.
Well, I have a couple, and I know that I might be stepping on some toes in other committees, but I do plan to work on issues regarding sheriff's transport. And the sheriffs, we pay for transport deputies. During the pandemic, they stopped transporting, and we don't know what happened to them. We asked for audits from the auditor's office, but he's got other things to audit, and it's not a priority, although he did write me and said that he was going to get to it. He's had whistleblower complaints about sheriffs. During the pandemic, many hotel and motel owners who were taking in the homeless asked for sheriff coverage. Chittenden County refused to cover. Lamoille County Sheriff's Office actually covered many of those Chittenden County places. I realize this goes beyond appropriations, but it does raise a lot of questions about state money being spent on these transports. It also raises questions about I realize they're independent, 14 independently elected officials, but I am not comfortable with what's happening. So I just want to alert you that I will be working on this and I've already had conversations with some sheriffs about some of these problems.
Dick, may I ask a question?
Yep.
Can you just take me through where are they being transported from and to? I just want to make sure
They're not transporting.
What are they supposed to be doing, or what are we
Well,
paying them
they're
to do?
state paid deputies who are paid to transport prisoners from jail to court, basically,
Okay.
and back.
Okay.
And I think there's 20 odd of them, and that we pay for out of the state budget. When they are not, as you realize, sheriffs also have independent businesses that they provide services to, Verizon, or I guess not, Consolidated or Comcast or whoever else is construction crews. So they get a lot more money for doing that. And there's been constant problems with transport. The courts are not happy. The sheriffs are not happy. Nobody's happy. So I want to really take that on and try to see if I can make some difference. Now, I may fail completely, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that it's something that I'm working on, and it's not really judiciary. It's not government operations. It's truly money coming out of the state budget.
Well, it seems like there are a couple of issues here. Of course, with transport deputy, one was the amount that we pay, which we've struggled with for years in appropes. But the other was the extent to which deputies that were already paid by the state were then providing contracted services, and therefore sort of a double revenue generating concern. And that's, I think, what you identified, Dick, and wanted the auditor to take a look at.
Right, and we have actually had, and we know in Bennington County, there has been double billing. Some towns are billed for example, Dorset got charged for Arlington. That Arlington actually ended its contract with the sheriff over some of the billing practices. So there are problems there, but if we've had, again, Lamoille County is an example, and I think Wyndham is as well, of good sheriffs who are doing a good job. But we have many who are, I want to look into it, and I know it's going to step on some toes, so just be prepared.
All right, well, you
I
never
would
shied
just-
away from stepping on toes, Senator Sears.
Pardon me?
I said you've never shied away from stepping
No,
on toes.
and no, which brings me to my next issue is,
I would just weigh in before you moved on and say, there are a few areas in having a sheriff in Lamoille County. They've done a decent job and stepped up when other places wouldn't. And I hope we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
well, that's the problem. And, you know, your sheriff in Lamoille County is actually providing the Woodside on an
Yep.
emergency basis. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I am.
Yeah.
And so, he's stepping up to try to deal with it. And that's, I didn't mean to get into the Woodside thing, but, he's got kids going there on an emergency basis into some.
Yep.
Probably you rent it to them, I'm sure.
So you have other things on your list, Senator Sears?
Yeah, I'd like to, you and I have already talked about the e-file, but for those who are new members are not familiar with e-file, it's a mess. And we're gonna be able to use money to extend so that the lawyers don't have to come up with the money until at least March 1st.
Yeah,
Or is
that's
it March 31st? I don't know.
March 31st.
March 31st.
Yeah.
But there's supposedly a new contract being negotiated with Tyler Tech out of Texas. And I'm hopeful that at least the legislature will get a say in how that contract is negotiated. We're charging Vermont lawyers a fee without any input from the legislature. I don't know whether fees.
Yeah, that was a real source of concern. And of course, this would allow us, and what Senator Sears is talking about is we use CRF money so that we were paying those e-filing fees through the end of December. But we had heard from the court administrator that they would hope that they could have more time to negotiate with Tyler, and it would require continuation of payment of those e-filing fees through March 31st. Now with the Corona relief extension, that's something that we will deal with in the budget adjustments. So we're continuing the payments for another quarter to allow not only contract negotiations, but the policy committees the chance to look at the contract and the fee structure. So that's just a heads up on what we will see a $75,000 request in the budget adjustment to fund that quarter. You only have one left. I'm putting you on a quota. You've already hogged all the bills today, Senator Sears.
Well,
Yeah.
You're just trying to get that award again.
Now I'm going to ask for, when we were in real session in the building, we had certain times that we didn't meet on, I think it was Thursday afternoons. So we could meet with agencies and departments. And I'm wondering if there's a way, because Zooming, we still need to meet with those agencies and departments and go over their budgets, but we have to do it remotely. So I'm wondering if we could establish that as part of our weekly schedule.
That was my plan.
I'm ahead of you. Then I will mute myself and say no more.
Well, I think we found it helpful because it gave committee members time to schedule meetings with the department heads or the staff, and also to do some responses to constituent issues as well. So that's been in place for a number of years, and unless people, which obviously Senator Sears is indicating, unless people say, gee, we'd like to get rid of it, or we'd like to see ourselves on Zoom longer on Thursday, then my plan would be to schedule that, that we would end Thursday's testimony. I think, what did we do, 3:30, 3 or 3:30? Chrissy will know. But it was a way of helping accommodate the workload and give it. The big problem, as you can see, is for some of us, there's a desire to meet first thing in the morning before your committees start. And then we've got meetings scheduled over noontime, multiple days, and even on certain afternoons. So the amount of time we have available with the two committees is quite limited. So unless I hear differently, I was just going to continue that scheduling.
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
In the past,
Chrissy, and the same thing, we have to, because of the chair's meetings, we also are going to be ending at 3:45 because that gives a 15-minute break. And the other question that I have, and that is the extent to which we need to recognize that doing our work remotely and via Zoom is really very tiring. And oftentimes at the end, we were booking ourselves all afternoon, 3 and 3.5 hour blocks. And I'm thinking, and I was at a conference where basically we should schedule in a certain amount, a break time, and just put up on our screen, committee on break between whatever and whatever, and give ourselves a time to get up and walk around and do some things, because we are maintaining a schedule and an intensity that by the end of the day, people are feeling pretty wiped out. And I think we have to think about how we accommodate this way of doing work, but we also accommodate our human limitations. So I was going to suggest, rather than absolute blocks from 1:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon or whatever it is, we build in a period of time for a block. And I don't know how long people want that to be. Normally it would be a half hour. But we could, I would not advise going more than a half hour, but would people find that workable, or should we 15 minutes? Give me your feedback.
Well,
I got a thumbs up,
usually-
but I don't know what is a thumbs up to. You want a break, Philip?
I like the idea of a half an hour break. That sounds good.
3 to 3:30 would work good. That's what we used to
Right.
do, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As long as we're getting our work done. If we start lagging behind, then cut it to 15 minutes.
Okay. Then we will. Yeah, I feel like the school teacher, right?
Cut it to 15.
You've done. And not that you ever experienced any intervention by your teacher, I'm sure, Senator Stein.
He was a
No.
model student, I heard.
Oh, yeah.
Chrissy's got her hand up.
So Chrissy, yes.
so just to be clear, Tuesdays, that's the day you'll be meeting, you adjourn early for the chairs meeting. So on Tuesdays, you'll go 1 to 3:45 with no break, or do you still want a break?
Well, that's 2 hours and 45 minutes.
I'd say 15 on Tuesday.
Yeah, let's cut it, because then we have another 15, which is between the 3:45 and 4.
Okay. And then obviously on Wednesday, you're fine. We'll put the half hour in from 3 to 3:30. Thursday, you're going to adjourn at 3:30 so people can do other type of
Mhm.
work, meeting with agency, department heads, constituents.
Yes.
So then on that day, do you want me to pad in 15 minutes as well on the Thursday since we're breaking at 3:30, or is
No,
that just
no,
total
no,
3:30?
no, we didn't have a break.
Okay, so Thursday, we're going to go straight through 1 to 3:30. And then on Friday, again, we'll have the full half-hour break.
Well, normally on Fridays, oh, well, wait a minute.
I have to leave early on Fridays.
No longer. We used to try to wrap up. I would say by Friday, we want to have everything wrapped up by 3 o'clock.
So we just go straight through on Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Great,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Any other scheduling thoughts or recommendations? Yes, Senator Ballin.
Not a scheduling thing. I think it's really important to schedule in breaks. I was doing a bunch of work, reading over the weekend about what Zoom is doing to our eyes, and we're not blinking enough. And it can get very serious if you continue to stare and you don't, wet your eyes. So I completely agree. Taking some breaks away from staring at each other for sure.
Also, it makes you realize that we really don't have the right chairs to be sitting in for such prolonged periods of time.
Mazza says he has extras if we want to go up.
Oh, good. I'll drive right over. Any other comments as we're trying to get ourselves organized and make our lives manageable for the remainder of the session? Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
could I just ask quickly, as somebody new to the committee, any advice on how to begin, the best, most efficient way to begin digging into my portfolio? What do people typically do at this time of year?
We usually start off by looking, well, first of all, we're going to start off with the budget adjustment. And then we'll move into the full budget, and that we will get individual presentations for everybody with their sections. And so the person assigned would have the responsibility of understanding, fielding any questions that committee members might have, and follow up to go back to that department to get clarification, to identify areas of concern, and be prepared to report out that section of the budget when we go on the floor. Last year was somewhat different because I guess I did it all, the reporting out, just to keep it. But that's what we would like, is committee members to focus really on that section of the budget. And if there are recommendations from the administration, to understand them, to modify them, reject them, which we have at times, and to be the lead person for that section of the budget for the rest of the committee. So that really would be what I would say is how we've approached it. We try to have good connections back to the policy committees, because oftentimes decisions that we have to make have an impact on either policy or their area, in a programmatic area. And that's, and the other part is, as I've mentioned, we've got this plethora of reports, but to look at them and really extract, if possible, are there some key things? I remember reading a report from the treasurer that had required a legislative action, and it was buried on page 48 of the report. And it was just by chance. I mean, that's not how you want to, that's not the most efficient way to identify something that needs to be dealt with. But that's the other thing. If there are areas like the CRF spending, we'll be taking a look at that in areas, if it went into certain areas, recommendations because of the deadline extension, how that might look like. We would ask for your areas of the budget to take the responsibility for doing that.
Okay, great, thank
And
you.
oftentimes, because we don't have the same time luxury, I don't want to use the word luxury, but our time is much more constrained because 2 days a week, we're on the floor in the afternoon. And that eats into our committee time. So we have 2 days where we have less committee time. And it really does mean if something comes up, then it's a lot easier to have one person. And I would just say, hey, Phil, would you follow up on that and report back? And then we'd take it from there. A lot of the time is spent just listening to presentations and trying to extract or identify what are the key issues or what we need to spend more time on. The other thing that we do for the 2 new members is we schedule public hearing. And so we used to have them in physical sites around the state, but we do it now electronically. And that is to have an opportunity for the public and for advocates for various funding requests to present their request to the committees. And we do that jointly with the House Appropriations. Yes, Rich.
So, and I'm sure that joint fiscal is going to help us balance and figure out what the federal money is that's coming and in its relationship with our budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the presentation that we're going to get this afternoon. But if there is stuff coming down the pike that very soon might be coming, would it not be appropriate that we connected some with like Senator Leahy's staff, given his new position, to ask what the priorities are and what we might be expecting? Because by the time we get to later in the session, late March and April, they might have more money coming our way, and it might be better for us to know that quicker.
Yeah. Well, we can put that on our list. I think what we found in some cases, the staff that we would get from their offices didn't have a more detailed understanding of the legislation. Remember, we had our whole hazard pay where we appealed to the staff, and they
didn't know.
In fact, never got a response except for one office, which was kind of and then that was why we ended up jettison half the hazard pay bill temporarily until we put it back together again at the end, toward the end of the session. But certainly Senator Leahy's in a very pivotal position, and it in terms of priorities and chairing appropriations. So we can a little later on see who would be the best person from his staff to give us an update of what his priorities will be as he's leading this. I did text Representative Welts when he was the day the Capitol was taken over, and he just said incredible. And that was his response back. I just, I sent him a text saying, stay well, stay strong, and he that was his one word response, incredible. So it's a lot going on the federal side right now, but I think maybe I don't know, the advantage for us is that we're going to have more time, and so maybe around maybe after we get back from town meeting or something like that might be a good time to schedule an update. If Chrissy, you want to make a note of that, in terms
because there's a number of issues. I'm thinking, I can't imagine they aren't going to do more on broadband. I would hope they do more than they did on higher education, and that will all affect what our thinking is in the decision.
And this last round did absolutely nothing for cities and states.
Yep.
And some of these large cities are just bleeding money. And we've gotten a lot of accolades for what Vermont did. A wonderful article around what we did for the homeless. but I was talking to Chris Roop, who's the new transportation person in joint fiscal, and the state of Vermont got more money than the whole city of Philadelphia, which had, think about the population difference. I think Philadelphia ended up with 200 million and we ended up with 1.2 billion for 624,000. So the per capita influx of money, both on our economy, but also what we're able to do was so dramatically influenced by what we had for resources. And so it really did show, for example, with the homeless, but we had to figure out how to get as much money as we could with the limitations on the CRF use. So that's going to be another challenge, is to see if there are ways that we can maybe take something that we paid for with CRF and use the other funding source. But about half of this money, only half of it comes through the state. The rest will go out directly. So that's.
But if I don't have a good handle on what's going out, what's going out may affect the decisions I want to make with our own budget.
Yeah, and the other thing that I would point out, and I mentioned it in an earlier meeting, and that is the budget that the administration is proposing is based on the revenue forecast that backwards. It is not based on the revenue forecast we're getting next week. And so that forecast is going to be dramatically different. And so I think in terms of the work ahead, a lot of that budget, in fact, is going to lose some of its relevance simply because it had to be built in a very different fiscal context and forecast than we're going to be provided with next week. So fortunately, it's going to be on the upside, but it, I'm sure we'll get a lot of comments regarding what the governor is proposing, but a lot of what has being proposed is maybe driven by that having to use that old forecast. So I just wanted to alert people or remind people that forecast will change, but the budget's being submitted, is going to predate that. Alice, you had a question or comment?
Just wondering, maybe this isn't worth it now, but can we get a paper copy of the BAA so that we can work off of?
No, I would love to give you a paper copy. We had hoped to have it on tomorrow.
No, when you
but
get it.
We haven't gotten it.
I know you haven't, but I'm saying when you get it, I think last year we worked off some paper, which was kind of handy.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly don't want to print that myself at home.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, at the end we did, and it was very helpful. It came, we don't even have to have it in a binder, but it was really helpful to have it mailed out and to work from that. But that's the other thing. We had hoped that we would be able to schedule the BAA presentation tomorrow, and then all the subsequent testimony from the affected departments. But as of now, I don't think we have, and maybe Steve Klein, when he comes in at 2:45, will have a better sense, but we don't have it, and I'm not sure when it will be made available to us by the administration. Chrissy?
Yeah, Senator Nick, I'll be sure to make a copy for everybody, and I'll pop it in the mail as soon as I have it, so you have a hard copy in front of you.
Thank you very much. Incidentally, I have about 6 turkeys right on my deck right now.
What day is the emergency board meeting?
The 19th.
19th.
At 3, right?
Yes, at 3. Unless it got changed. And Chrissy, I asked you if you could confirm it. That's what I have on my calendar.
Right now, that's what I have as confirmation, and I have not heard otherwise, but I have set out a few feelers.
Okay.
And where would we see it? Where would we see it? The people who aren't on the board.
I will find out, and I'll make sure you all have a link.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and ordinarily you'd walk up to the ceremonial office and listen, but so we'll send you the link, and then of course we'll have the 2 reports as well. One from Tom Cabet and the other from Jeff Carr.
Yep.
And could Chrissy send us a copy of our different areas of reporting? electronically?
Yeah, I just sent that your way about a half hour ago.
Oh, they're already here?
Yeah, they should be in your inbox. And then I'm also going to post it on the web, just for
Okay.
any interested parties, they know who to contact. So we've done that historically in the past, and I'm going to post it this afternoon.
Yep, thanks.
Let me know if there are any changes. If you see anything I need to fix before I do that, that'd be great.
Chrissy's way ahead of us, Bobby.
I guess so. I gotta get another rig going here so I can stay up with it.
Mhm.
Have two computers going.
Oh, yeah, but that's really what you need for mental stimulation, is to have two computers going and then people texting you on your iPhone. So it's 2:38. Steve Klein is going to be available. What did you say, 2:45?
Correct. He'll be joining us at 2:45.
Okay, so we have
10 minutes.
anything else, or do people want to just take a little break, get a drink of water, and we'll come back for Steve's presentation? Chrissy,
We'll
your
just
hands up?
stay on, right?
Yeah.
Before you go, question for you. Agenda for tomorrow. Since we don't have the BAA, we don't have anything scheduled because we thought that would take up the balance of the week. I don't know if the committee wants to brainstorm thoughts about who you'd like to hear from tomorrow, or Senator Kitchell and you and I can talk offline.
Okay, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get let me ask, on the state colleges, I would really like to, and I know, Philip, you've been on the study committee, and I know that Senator Ballin has talked about, obviously, the future of our state college system. Is that a topic that you could bring us up to date, even if we don't need to? Look, I'm not inclined to meet because people, until we have something, that requires our meeting. But if we wanted to spend an hour, Bill, is that something that you could help present? Or who else might join you to give us a briefing in terms of where we stand? Because it does tie into money. There's no question about that in terms of this year and future years.
I could certainly do part of it. I could have the consultants and NCHEMS. There's a guy, Brian, who's been in charge of drafting the report. I can see if he'd be free.
Okay.
Would this be tomorrow?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What time, Jane?
Well, what Chrissy's saying is we had kept this week open, assuming we were getting the budget adjustment tomorrow to work on. And in light of the fact that it's not ready to be presented to us, now might be a good time to
Okay.
do some briefing on these areas that people identified as wanting to spend more time.
And what would be the, we have Senate floor in the afternoon tomorrow? So what time would the hour-long segment be?
So Becca, how long do you think we're gonna be on the floor?
I need to speak with Senator White. I think what we're going to be doing around town meeting is pretty straightforward, and we have a lot of buy-in. I don't think it's going to take a lot of time. So half
It's
hour?
a short bill.
Should I see if they're available maybe 2 to 3?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
And if not, then.
And if they're not, I can walk people through the report and the general logic, but he's a good resource because he actually drafted it.
Okay, I think if you can make that arrangement, see, you've already gotten your first assignment, would be to see if available 2 to 3, because the more that we can use this time, this free time, to get a better understanding of these areas, I think now's the time to do it. So that would be great if you can arrange it. If not, then we'll go to another and we'll try to figure it out.
I believe the committee already has the report, the December 4th report. We just updated it yesterday. It's not submitted yet, but we did an update, but he can probably verbally take
Could
us.
Chrissy send that report out again? Then I don't have to look for it.
Oh, it's huge. It's a long report, but sure. Yeah.
There's
yeah.
a good executive summary and
Uh-huh. Yes, it does have a good executive summary. So that's, if you can arrange that, that would really be good.
I will, Jane.
Then why don't we just take a break until, oh my God, it's only 3 minutes from now. Why don't we take a 10-minute break and then we'll go back and listen to Steve and finish up today.
Yep.